All right, we're going to get started as everyone's still kind of grabbing food and getting settled. I do want to get going because we have a very busy agenda. We have a sign-in and agendas up front. Has anyone not signed in or received an agenda? Please make sure you come up and do that. Again, we have a lot of things to go through, a lot of different areas and departments. One thing to remember is we are taping this, so if you have questions, we will make the tape or the film available to everyone to help recap the entire meeting. We do ask that everyone is respectful of the time that are listed on this sheet. If you have questions, please write them down. We will make sure you get into contact with the department or area that you may have questions for. If questions fit in the allotted time, that's great. Hopefully we have time for that. But we do need to remain on schedule. The agenda already shows that we're going a little bit past 1:30, so I want to make sure we stay on schedule. Any questions to start? A couple things for those who may have not been in a meeting in this room. We do have bathrooms right here. What I do ask, because of the filming portion of this, if you need to step out to take a call, if you could use either the rear door or that door, please just avoid this corner of the room with the camera going on for the presenter. And that's about it. All right. PJ, whenever you and Marcus are ready, you guys are up first. Again, for everybody, agendas and sign-in sheet up front.
I'll come get it in a minute. Okay, so unfortunately Marcus is out sick. I think he might have the flu. So say a little prayer for him. For those who don't know me, my name is PJ Moses. I'm the Associate Athletic Director for Student Services, Academics, and Compliance. Chicken nugget just got away there. So what's going around is just a packet of the camp forms. These are all online. Please actually, you can use these to follow along right now, but these are all online. Please make sure that when you're doing the camp forms that you do go online and download the forms so that you're making sure that you have the most up-to-date forms to use. So before camp, please keep in mind that camp registration is not allowed to be opened until you've received approval. So keep that in mind. So please don't open up the registration until you've gotten the approval. The earlier you submit it, the better. It takes several weeks to get all of the stuff done, so the sooner you get it in, the better. But at the very least, we need at least 2 weeks. But again, for the background approvals, that whole 9 yards, the whole thing takes about 8 weeks. So just do keep that in mind. So the first form you got, so the forms have to be submitted to my office as well as to Jake, so that, or what's his face? Alex, yes. Sorry. So where is he? Alex, and for the initial approvals, and then that goes to Alicia for the budget part of it. So to follow along here, you need to have the this is the camp and clinic authorization form first, and on here is a quick little checklist of what you need. So you need any of the advertisements and a brochure or draft submitted to us. You can do that on Jump Forward. And then you need to submit the preliminary schedule of events to us as well with that camp packet. And then any staff approvals, please include their names of all the employees as well as the volunteer people. And then the camp budget form. So you fill out this first form, and then here on the back is the camp staff approval form. Again, please make sure that you're putting out the names of anybody who's going to work at your camp. For the students, we need to know what the expected pay is. Please make sure you're putting a number here. Yes does not work for us. We need the actual amount that they're going to get paid for students as well as for non-Stetson employees. So we need to make sure that they're getting paid the going rate and that we're not, we've got verification that we're not trying to get them to send their AAU pros here, like the Nike camps or what have you. So please make sure you're filling this out. This gray part here, please do not fill that out. That is our part to fill out, so please leave that blank. And then, this is not mine, okay. After the camp, I'm sorry, so before the camp, so once you've done this, you've got your preliminary approvals, the whole 9 yards. There should be a little bit of lag time, hopefully in between there, where everything's approved and you're updating stuff. Please make sure you're submitting any updates to our office as soon as you can. So if you've updated the website, if you suddenly decide that you're going to do some sort of social media campaign to advertise for your camp, make sure that you're sending those to us for approval before you send them out. If you've updated the schedule of events that's going to happen, again, please make sure you're submitting that to us. And then keep in mind that any background checks have to be completed before anybody can start working camp. Now, this is not the same background camps that Stacy does. Keep in mind, this is just the background checks for the camps. And then also, I think Elisa's going to talk about this, but the verification of working with minors training also needs to be done. We still have that group form on our website. Keep in mind, keep a copy for your files, but going forward, also make sure that you're submitting a copy of that to our office as well, so that we can make sure that we've got everything on file and that we're good to go. And then after the camp, you'll need to submit the free or reduced admissions for anybody that you had free or reduced admissions for. You need to make sure that you're submitting that form. If you did not do that, please go ahead and submit a blank form with the word no on it that you didn't do it, but make sure you're submitting that form one way or the other to us. And then you need to submit the staff reconciliation form, which is the very last sheet here. And again, I need the actual amounts that you're paying for the students as well as for the non-Stetson members, high school coaches, JUCO, whatever it is. Make sure that you're giving us the exact amount that they're being paid in that reconciliation. And then the complete camp participant list and transaction reports are in Jump Forward. So again, these forms for the most part can be found online in Jump Forward. And if you just make sure for the camp website that if you've got it in Jump Forward, which is where you should have it, just put that it's in Jump Forward so we're not looking all over the world to find it. And that is it. Any questions? No? Okay. Also keep in mind that if you're doing more than one camp, you need to submit a form for every camp that you're doing unless it's a series of the exact same camp. So if it's just different dates in the same camp, that's fine for one form, but if it's different camps, you need to actually submit different forms for those. Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
David, just real quick for anyone coming up and presenting, it was brought up, the microphone is just for the camera. It's not amplifying sound for the room. So just keep that in mind. You don't need to speak directly into the mic. It's only for the camera.
Jeez, David.
Sorry. I didn't pull that over, did I? All right, so for those of you who are new, I'm David Wood. I'm the Executive Director for Continuing Education and Outreach. Sherry Gowan is my Assistant Director. And in the room, passing out pricing sheets, Caden Watts is a new employee, he's our program coordinator, and Abigail is our graduate assistant. So you may run into those two at some point during the summer as well. I've gotten a lot of questions about pricing, so I made sure we printed those out for you, so you have the current pricing for this year. You are not required to have meals on campus, but if you choose to do so, the pricing is listed there. I will remind you that you are not authorized to bring in catering of any kind onto campus without approval ahead of time, and typically that answer has been no. So it is a part of dining facilities contract that we can't bring food onto campus. So if there's an issue with your camp specifically, I recommend that you talk to myself or Sherry in advance about that. 2019 is quite full already. If you have not talked with us, I recommend you do so immediately. We are actually, for planning purposes, we're actually working in 2020 and 2021 right now on those schedules. So 2019, for my purposes, not for Sherry, my purposes is over. She's the one that has to make all this happen every day. So Sherry, anything you want to add?
Does anyone in here not already have a camp scheduled with us that is planning on scheduling a camp? No? 'Cause I know we have
It's good.
tennis. Where's tennis? Tennis. No camps?
No, we're gonna do a tournament, but it's not gonna be really a camp.
Okay. Does that matter? The tournaments, they still have to come in?
You should talk to us
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
so we have it on the master schedule, and
It's super important that we know, even if you're just running day camps, that's not really going to have any food or anything. It's still really important that we know that you're here, so that we don't schedule anything somewhere you might be, or, well, we don't necessarily use your courts or anything, but it's just good that we know that you're here. We have 1,000 kids running around, and if your kid, something happens and I don't know where they're coming from, so it's just really good that I know that people are on campus, whoever is on campus.
so
No.
just remember, our office manages all facilities in the summer, from graduation to start, first day of class. So we handle housing, dining, reservations of everything that's happening on campus. So you would not go, as an example, to housing for something that you want during the summer. So
With that being said as well, even with the basketball courts and stuff like that, that all still comes through us. And when we're talking about the basketball courts, that gets really sticky in the summer because we still have to plan practices and all of that. So please, 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 if you have anything that you're wanting here or in the Hollis Center, it's super important that we know what's happening. Because as you can see, it's booked. So that's it. Any questions?
if anybody wants to have a camp on the 4th of July, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Any questions? Thank you so much. Sure, all yours.
I'll take it digitally.
I'll take it digitally.
I don't know, I might want to put that up.
It's in Sherry's office.
It might change tomorrow.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nancy Piazza from the Human Resource Department. I'm going to go over what our requirements are for your camps. Want to identify who your campers are. Send me the list of those people that might need background checks. If you're not sure, you can send me the list and I can check to see when they have had their last background check. They have to have a current background check in order to work the camps. What we consider current is anything that's been done within the last 24 months. Okay, so basically 2 years. Our vendor is Career Builder Employment Services. It goes CBES. What will happen is you will send me the name, I will contact Career Builder. They will send the person, whether it's a student or a, going to be a staff member, an email. The person then has to answer the email with the information that they're looking for. They're looking for date of birth, addresses, social security number. The screening doesn't start until that person responds to the email. So reach out to your people, make sure that they respond to the email.
Please be sure you have a current email address for everyone you're going to hire, because those that do not attend Stetson will have an outside Stetson email that we have no way of getting. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Yeah, and if it doesn't show up in their inbox, ask them to check their junk or spam, because of software on the computer, it may end up there by accident. Typically, the background checks take 7 to 10 days for a domestic background check. Sometimes they come back sooner. Sometimes they do take the full 10 days. So make sure you're giving enough time for your person to be screened. The cost for the background screening has gone up. It's now $35.95 per domestic screening, and it's a 10-year look back now instead of a 7-year look back, and that's the reason for the increase in price. Keep in mind, if you have international students or individuals who have lived or worked outside of the U.S. within the past 7 years, they will be required to have an international screening in addition to the domestic screening. That will be an additional cost to you, depending on where they are. I had an argument with the career builders because they consider Puerto Rico international. Like they're not international, they're U.S. citizens, but apparently they have some different court system. So there is additional charge. The charges are as low as $30, could be as high as $170. It all depends on what country we have to go to for the screening. And for the international screening, they will be required to provide additional documentation. They have to fill out an additional form, and they have to provide their passport or whatever government ID they have with an ID number on it. So please, and they can take an additional 20 days. So keep that in mind when you're scheduling your camps, especially with the students. If they want to work the camp, but they are an international student, it's going to take longer for their screening. If anybody is doing has somebody that's going to be driving your athletes, if they have to go over to the new aquatic center or wherever, that person who's driving will need to also have an MVR clearance. So they will need to fill out an authorization form that gives us the permission to research their motor vehicle records, and a copy of their driver's license, okay? Once we get that back, I will let you know that if they've been approved or not approved. They all go through Elise. You guys all know Elise, so she'll take good care of you, but if they're not approved, they cannot drive students, okay? All camp workers, whether they're students or outside people, are required to come to Human Resources to complete an I-9 and tax form. This includes graduating students. So if you have students that have worked at your camps before, graduate in May, and the camp is being held in June or July, even if they worked as an employee for Stetson as a student, they must come to Human Resources and complete employment forms. They are not considered a student, a Stetson employee, they're a student employee. Those are two different things. Okay, so keep that in mind. As far as the documentations for the I-9, they have to provide original documents. We cannot accept photocopies or pictures of their social security card. They must provide additional copy. I have handouts here with a list of what documents are acceptable, and I'll pass them out after I finish, so you could let them know that they need an original social security card or an original birth certificate. And everybody, this is extremely important. If your camp runs on a weekend, the people who are working your camp, be them students or outside people, must have their paperwork done before the start of the camp. If they don't have the paperwork done before the start of the camp, they cannot work the camp. So please, if it's a logistical problem, we do have the opportunity to sometimes have I-9s completed by another university in their location, but we prefer that they come to us prior to the start of the camp and get all the paperwork taken care of. And I just want to also reiterate that volunteers are different than paid Stetson employees. So if you have a volunteer coach that's working with your students during the year, and you want to pay them for that camp, they have to fill out new employee paperwork. They are not automatically, governed and processed in as a volunteer that they can automatically work the camp. If they're going to be paid, they must fill out employment paperwork. Okay? Any questions?
One question.
Yes.
Do Stetson employees have to fill out the MVR information as well?
If they are going to be driving and they have never had their license cleared, then yes. If they're a coach and they've already had an MVR done, then,
We run them yearly.
oh, okay.
Renewals, so as long as you're on staff, we have your MVR information. If you move from out of state and have a new driver's license and have not provided the updated driver's license information, I do need that so I can rerun them. But generally speaking, if you needed an MVR clearance to be hired here, then we check them every year.
Okay, thanks,
Can I
Lisa.
also add the release form that is for the MVR, we'd only go to Elise. Do not send that to HR. It contains information that's confidential, which is why we're now using an email contact to do a background check. In the past, we did used to use that same release form because it contained information that we weren't able to obtain from the individual. So MVR's documentation, copies go directly to Elise in order to separate the two functions.
Okay, and then you will CC me when they're approved. Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Can I do a quick, sorry. I just wanted to talk quickly about the EPAP. So in the past, you guys have filled out quadruplicate, triplicate personnel action forms for everybody who's working for you. We've been working with the athletics office as well as other offices on campus. And all of those forms are moving to online. We don't have an exact date yet because we're still doing some testing and want to make sure that it's working 100% before we train you and bring you on board. But this is a system that runs through the Banner program and crosses all the I's, dots all the T's for us. It does not touch the background screen or the MVR screen, but it does make sure that the person is eligible to work before they're hired, because they're approved through the athletics office and then approved through student employment and or HR. So that's something new coming to you guys this year. More information will be coming your way once we have once we've made sure that it's 100% clear for you all. We've been doing it for student employment for the last month and a half now. Really, really positive feedback. It's a lot easier. A lot of the boxes on those PAF forms, you guys typically won't know how to fill them out, whereas most of them are already populated on the PAF form. So you're really just looking up the student or the employee and figuring out what category of hire they're going to be. So it should make it easier on your end and also expedite the whole hiring process all around. So that's coming your way. I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting. No, it's exciting.
Hi, everyone. I'm assuming most of you know me by now. My name is Elise Paulson. I am the Director of Risk Management for the university. I will also follow up with an email to everyone with updated versions of our forms, but Alex is helping me pass around right now, one to each staff, just copies of the common forms that we're going to be using for camps and clinics. So if you go through this with me, the first one is our minor child program. So it explains what our requirements are, what our expectations are, what our responsibilities are as employees and mandated reporters. It also has the sign-up sheet if you do a group training, and has the links for how to access the online training if you want people to do it separately. My recommendation is that, especially with athletics now wanting certificates of completion on file, is that you send out this link prior to your camp. You receive their certificates, you keep them for your records, and make sure they get to PJ or the appropriate staff member within athletics. So sending that link out to your staff members prior to camp is my recommendation for you. The second form I have in here is our risk acknowledgement and liability waiver. This has not changed, so if you already have that form online on Jump Forward, same form as what we're using. This is required for every single participant. So those of you who have been with us in athletics the last few years know that we had some issues with people participating at camps without being properly registered. That means we didn't have the risk acknowledgement and the liability waiver on file. So if we have a claim, we're in trouble because we didn't follow our own institutional procedures and we did not have the proper documentation for that participant. So this is required, it is not an option. The next form is our consent to treat. This has to be notarized. That is a requirement for this form. The first one is a witness signature needed. This one must be notarized. Most of you hire notaries to work camp check-in. That's a great way to make sure everything is going to be notarized. But again, this is required. We cannot treat a minor without this form. Okay. Again, form has not changed. Current ones you're using, if they're already on Jump Forward, are perfectly fine. The next form is our accident reporting form. If you have a participant injured during camp, this form needs to be filled out and submitted to me immediately. Please, immediately. We will gather information. We may have to do a site visit. Typically, if a student is or a participant's injured on campus, you're going to be calling public safety. They will also take a report, but I need this regardless. Okay, so this has to come back to me. I will send you a version of this that you can type into or a PDF that you can just print and write on. As long as I get it back, that's great. A lot of times if we're filing a claim, I'm going to ask for the copies of the liability acknowledgement or liability waiver and risk acknowledgement. I'm also going to ask for the consent to treat form. My recommendation is that everything is in one binder. By camp, all your forms are in one binder, all your compliance forms, your finance forms, your risk management forms are all in the same binder. So if we do have an issue, we have easy access to that information. If you have an employee, and I do not have this in here, but if you have an employee, whether it's a student employee or a staff member or coach who is injured during camps, you do have to report that as well. That is a workers' comp issue. So I have on our risk management website reporting forms for both students and employees, and I need that information immediately as well. You cannot wait multiple days to get that information to me. I have to submit the claim within 24 hours. So please get that information to me immediately. The next page I have is our sport accident insurance coverage. We do have a blanket coverage policy for our sports camps. However, that doesn't include all of our sports. That includes the sports that we have commonly run camps for. So if you are looking to add a camp and you have not traditionally run camps before, I will have to add you to our policy. So I'll be making sure I'm working with Alex and Jake to confirm if we have any sports that haven't traditionally done this, I get them added to the policy prior to the camp taking place. Currently, our policy runs on an August to August cycle. We are looking to get that switched to a June 1 start date, which is in line with the rest of our policies. If that happens, we will have some policy number adjustments that will make sure we'll get to everyone. The last page is our volunteer acknowledgement agreement and liability waiver. I know we've hit on this already, that everyone has to have background checks and complete their minor child training before they can work a camp, but that also goes for volunteers. So even if you're not paying someone to work the camp, if they're volunteering their time to be a notary, if they're volunteering their time to work t-shirt sales or concession stand, volunteering their time to get some experience for coaching, they have to be properly screened. That is our responsibility as an institution. This form, it's a 2-page form. This is the risk acknowledgement and liability waiver for those volunteers as well. They all have to be screened. They all have to be on file with us. If they're going to be driving any campers around, I also have to do an MVR. So that staff list that you provide when you're
submitting your camp for approval or the 14 days before camp if you're making updates, that has to be comprehensive of everyone who is going to be interacting with participants during those camps. I know that sometimes you add people late and that really is unacceptable because it puts us at a huge risk institutionally. So please make sure that documentation is comprehensive and all of these forms are turned in ahead of time. Kels.
What about a student who's not helping at camp, and maybe they'll be on the campus tour after just walking around with people?
If you are scheduling them to interact with minors in any way, they need to have everything completed. Yes. PJ.
What if I decide to hire JJ as my notary?
You still have to have JJ added on your staff list. We still have to make sure she has a background check within the last 24 months, and we still have to make sure she's gone through the minor child program. So don't assume that just because you're hiring, say I've spoken at a camp last year, don't assume just because you're hiring me to speak at a camp that I have an updated background check because I was hired 4+ years ago. Don't assume that that is okay. Everyone has to be listed on those sheets. Otherwise, our staff cannot confirm that we are compliant. Coach.
High school coach is bringing a team in. That coach is going to interact with kids at our camp. Does he in turn have to have a background check, and does he have to have an MDR because he's driving the kids in from his school there?
What is his role? Is he working our camp as an instructor for us?
Only for him. Yeah, we give them 15 minutes to instruct their own team or to run their 7-on-7.
That's a good question. I'll run that past United Educators. My thought is if they are bringing the team and it's a team camp type of setup, we're not going to typically require that because they're not an employee, but I want to run that past United Educators and get their feedback on it. All right.
Oh.
When with the two liability forms, let's say we have a kid break for laying in camp, do we retain a copy of that and give the EMTs the originals, or how would you like us to handle an event like that?
I want the originals on file at the university, so give the EMTs a copy. When you submit that accident report to me, I also will take a copy initially so that I have everything, so you can just scan it and get it into my email right away. And then if we do have to file, if we have a lawsuit, if we go through litigation, then we'll want the original documents in my office. All right, I will be sending these out. I know Terry used to just send them out to camp directors. With how positions change over here, I'm gonna make sure I send it out to the entire listserv so that everyone has access to these updated forms. You all know how to get a hold of me. You have my cell phone number. My office on campus is 7701. So feel free if you have any liability related questions, any insurance related questions, to contact me directly. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Oates. I'm the budget analyst